My name is Sarah, and I'm 31 years old. For the past 4 years, I have been the person who shows up. Not because anyone asked me to, not because I was paid to, but because when my mother was diagnosed with early-stage Parkinson's disease the winter I turned 27, I looked around the room at my brother and my sister, and I realized that if I didn't step forward, no one would. I had a life before all of this. I was a graphic designer with a small studio in Austin, building something I was genuinely proud of. I had an apartment with a balcony where I grew tomatoes in the summer. I had friends I went to trivia night with every Thursday. None of that disappeared overnight. But piece by piece, I let it go: the studio, the apartment, the Thursday nights, until I was living in my mother's house in Beaumont, Texas, managing her medications, driving her to appointments, handling her finances, and slowly becoming invisible to the family I was doing it all for. My mother's name is Carol. She is 68 years old, sharp as a tack, and stubborn in the way that only a woman who raised 3 children mostly alone can be. The Parkinson's affects her left hand and her balance. It does not affect her mind. That is something I have had to say out loud more times than I should ever have had to in the past 4 years, and it is something that became the center of everything that happened on the night of my mother's birthday dinner. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My brother's name is Marcus. He is 39, lives in Dallas, and works in commercial real estate. He calls himself an entrepreneur, which mostly means he has a lot of ideas and a lot of energy and a rotating cast of business partners who eventually stop returning his calls. He is charming in that particular way that makes people trust him immediately, and he has been borrowing money from our mother since he was 22 years old. I stopped keeping track of the total somewhere around year 3 of living here, when I found a stack of signed personal checks in my mother's desk drawer made out to Marcus, and the number was large enough that my hands went cold. My sister's name is Diane. She is 35, lives in Houston, and has 2 kids and a husband named Greg, who I have always found deeply unremarkable. Diane loves our mother the way people love something they don't want to think too hard about. She sends birthday cards. She calls on Sunday evenings for exactly 12 minutes. She posted a photo of herself and my mother at Easter with the caption "So grateful for this woman" and got 400 likes. She has driven to Beaumont to help with a doctor's appointment exactly once in 4 years. I am not bitter about this. Or maybe I am, a little. But I understood early on that the shape of our family was the shape it was always going to be, and that understanding it was more useful than resenting it. What I did not understand, what took me longer than it should have, was that Marcus had been planning something for a very long time. It started, as these things often do, with a new girlfriend. Her name was Renee. Marcus brought her to Thanksgiving 2 years ago, and she was everything you would expect from a woman Marcus chose. Beautiful, a little guarded, very good at seeming interested in whatever you were saying. She was a paralegal at a firm in Dallas, and she had a way of asking questions that felt like conversation but in retrospect felt more like inventory. How long has your mom lived in this house? Has she thought about whether the layout will be manageable long term? Has she talked to anyone about what her options look like down the road? I noticed. I filed it away. I told myself I was being paranoid. The house my mother lives in has been in our family for 31 years. My father built the back porch with his own hands the summer before he died. My mother taught me to make pie crust in that kitchen. There are pencil marks on the doorframe of the hallway where she measured all 3 of us every year on our birthdays until we were too old to think it was fun. That house is not just a house. It is the physical record of everything our family was at its best, and I had given up 4 years of my life to make sure my mother could stay in it for as long as she wanted to. Marcus visited 3 times in those 4 years before the birthday dinner. Each time, he stayed for a weekend and spent most of it talking to our mother at the kitchen table in a low, careful voice that stopped the moment I walked in. Each time, he left with a check. I know because I reconciled my mother's accounts every month and the withdrawals were there, neat and documented, or amounts I could see but couldn't fully challenge without starting a war I didn't yet have the weapons for. 6 months before the birthday dinner, Marcus moved Renee into his Dallas apartment and started calling our mother more frequently. I could hear them talking sometimes through the wall of my bedroom at night, my mother's voice warm and easy, Marcus's voice doing the thing it does when he wants something, the low, smooth register he uses when he's building toward an ask. Then, 3 months before the birthday dinner, Renee called me directly. She was friendly. She said she was worried about my mother, the Parkinson's, the long-term care needs, the burden I must be carrying. She said Marcus had been doing a lot of research, and there were options I might not be aware of, financial instruments that could help with care costs, equity conversion tools, things that would benefit everyone. She mentioned a financial advisor they'd been working with. She mentioned that she'd helped Marcus understand the legal side of things through her paralegal work. I said I would think about it. Then I called an elder law attorney named Patricia Okafor, who had been recommended to me by my mother's neurologist, and I told her everything. Patricia listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Sarah, I want you to do 3 things. First, make sure your mother has a durable power of attorney in place that you can trust. Second, start keeping records of everything: calls, visits, financial transactions, anything that feels off. Third, and this is important, make sure your mother understands she can revoke any documents she signs at any time, as long as she is legally competent." And she sounds competent to me. She was. She absolutely was. I want to be clear about something because the comments I've seen on stories like mine always debate this, and I think it matters. My mother at 68, with Parkinson's affecting her left hand and her gait, was more mentally sharp than most people I know at 40. She managed her own calendar. She read 2 books a month. She did the crossword every morning in pen. The disease that was slowly changing her body had not touched her mind, and anyone who suggested otherwise, and Marcus would eventually suggest otherwise, was lying for a reason. I spent the 3 months before the birthday dinner doing exactly what Patricia told me to do. I documented every call from Marcus. I photographed every check my mother wrote. I set up a shared folder with Patricia and sent her copies of anything that looked significant. I also had a long, honest conversation with my mother, sitting at the kitchen table with cups of tea between us, and I told her what I was worried about. She was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then she said, "I know, baby. I've been watching him too. I just didn't want to believe it." We updated her durable power of attorney together the following week. Her primary POA was now shared between me and her oldest friend, a woman named Loretta who had known my mother since 1987 and who had exactly 0 patience for nonsense. We also drafted a letter to the financial advisor Marcus had mentioned, formally declining any further contact, and had Patricia send it on my mother's behalf. Marcus did not call for 6 weeks after that letter went out. Then he called to say he was throwing a birthday dinner for our mother at her house and that the whole family was coming. My mother looked at me across the kitchen when she told me. I looked back at her. "Do you want to go?" I asked. "It's my house," she said. So we went. Or rather, we stayed. Since it was our home, and they came to us, Diane and Greg arrived first with the kids, who immediately ran into the backyard and started destroying the garden I'd planted in the spring. Renee arrived 20 minutes later carrying 2 bottles of wine she'd clearly chosen carefully, the kind of deliberate generosity that is always about something other than generosity. Marcus arrived last, 15 minutes after everyone else, which is a thing he does, making an entrance, making you wait, establishing from the start that his time is more valuable than yours. He hugged my mother for a long time. He shook my hand. Dinner was strange. Renee had apparently coordinated with Diane to bring most of the food, which meant my mother and I had been subtly edged out of hosting our own home. The conversation was light and easy on the surface, and I could feel the architecture of something underneath it. Marcus was telling stories, making everyone laugh, refilling wine glasses. Renee was watching. Greg was talking to no one in particular about property values. Diane was doing what Diane always does, which is exist pleasantly and notice nothing. I ate my food and I waited. The birthday cake came out store-bought, which my mother hates but didn't say anything about, and everyone sang, and my mother blew out her candles and smiled the smile she saves for situations she is enduring rather than enjoying. And then Marcus stood up. He did not clink his glass like people do at weddings. He just stood. And the room went quiet in the particular way rooms go quiet when something with weight is about to be said. "I want to talk about something important," he said. "Something I should have brought up a long time ago, and something I think all of us have been avoiding." He looked at my mother. His voice was kind. That was the most frightening part, how kind his voice was. "Mom, this house is too much. The maintenance, the property taxes, the stairs. I've watched you struggle for 4 years and it breaks my heart. Diane and I have been talking, And we've found a beautiful assisted living community in Dallas, close to me, where you'd have everything you need. All the care, all the support. Community. You'd be safe. My mother's face did not change. The plan, Marcus continued, would be to sell this house. The equity would cover years of quality care. And I've been working with a financial advisor. Renee has helped me understand the structure to set up the transition. There are some documents we'd need Mom to sign, just to get the process started. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. He had brought documents to our mother's birthday dinner. Sarah. His eyes moved to me, and they were still kind. Still so carefully kind. I think we both know that what you've been doing here isn't sustainable. You've given up a lot. This would free you too. The table was quiet. Diane was nodding slowly, the way she does when she hasn't fully processed something but wants to seem thoughtful. Greg was looking at the tablecloth. The kids were still in the backyard. Renee had her hands folded in her lap and was looking at a fixed point on the wall, and I understood in that moment that she had done exactly this before, in exactly this way, for exactly this purpose. I looked at my mother. My mother put down her fork very carefully. She looked at Marcus with an expression I recognized, the same expression she used to get when one of us lied to her as children and thought we'd gotten away with it. Marcus, she said, I am 68 years old. I have Parkinson's disease in my left hand. I do the crossword in pen every morning. I balance my own checkbook. I am not moving to Dallas. I am not selling this house. And I am not signing anything tonight. Marcus's smile held. Mom, I understand this is hard to hear. I'm done listening to this, my mother said. That was when I stood up. I had been waiting for this. Not in a vindictive way. In the way you wait when you've prepared for something, when you've been patient because patience was the right tool for the moment. I had spent 3 months building something in that waiting, and now the moment had arrived and I was very calm. Marcus, I said, I need to tell you something. When Renee called me 3 months ago to talk about equity conversion tools and financial instruments, I reached out to an elder law attorney. Her name is Patricia Okafor. Everything that's happened since then, every call, every visit, every financial transaction has been documented and shared with her office. The kindness left his face. The checks you've received from Mom over the past 4 years total a significant amount of money. Patricia has copies of all of them. She also has a record of the contact from Renee's firm, which she found very interesting given that Mom had no existing relationship with that firm and had not sought financial advice. Renee stood up. I also want you to know, I said, and I kept my voice even because this part mattered most, that Mom's power of attorney has been updated. She is listed as fully competent by her neurologist, her GP, and the elder law office. Any documents you brought tonight, Marcus, have no legal path forward. And if you attempt to pursue this further through any channel, Patricia is prepared to file a report with Adult Protective Services documenting attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Marcus said my name. His voice had changed. Sit down, my mother said to him. And listen to your sister. He didn't sit down. He and Renee left, actually, within about 10 minutes, a lot of words in that 10 minutes, raised voices and accusations that I was controlling, that I was isolating our mother, that I had poisoned the family against him. Diane cried a little. Greg stared at the tablecloth harder. The kids came in from the backyard asking for cake. My mother cut the cake herself. She gave the kids the pieces with the most frosting. She poured herself a glass of sweet tea and she sat down at her own kitchen table in her own home and she looked at me with an expression I will keep with me for the rest of my life. Thank you, she said. That was 3 months ago. Patricia filed a formal report with Adult Protective Services. The financial advisor Marcus had been working with is under review by the Texas State Securities Board. Several of the instruments he had been recommending to families in similar situations appear, as Patricia put it, to have some significant compliance problems. Renee's paralegal license is under review with the Texas Paralegal Division based on her role in soliciting vulnerable adults for financial planning services without appropriate licensure. Marcus has not called. Diane called once, 2 weeks after the dinner, to say she felt like things had gotten out of hand and maybe everyone needed to take a breath. I told her I agreed that things had gotten out of hand and that the breathtaking had been happening for 4 years while she sent birthday cards. And then I wished her well and hung up. My mother's Parkinson's is progressing, as it does. Her left hand trembles more than it did a year ago. Her balance requires more attention. We have a physical therapist who comes twice a week, and we have a care plan that her neurologist helped us build, and we have Loretta who comes over every Tuesday to play cards and eat whatever my mother feels like baking. Last week, my mother made a lemon cake from scratch. She stood at the counter in the kitchen where she taught me to make pie crust, and she beat the batter herself with her right hand while I held the bowl, and the whole house smelled like sugar and butter and something that has no name but that I have known since I was a child. The pencil marks are still on the doorframe in the hallway. I measured myself against them last week just to see. I'm the same height I was at 17. Some things don't change. There is something I want to say to anyone watching this who is in the position I was in, or who is afraid of ending up there. Caring for someone you love is not a weakness. It is not naivety. It is not something to be taken advantage of, even though people will try. The most important thing I did was not stand up at that dinner table. The most important thing I did was make a phone call 3 months before the dinner, when I was still scared and still uncertain and still hoping I was wrong about my brother. I was not wrong, but I was ready. Know your rights. Know your parents' rights. A person does not lose the right to make decisions about their own life, their own home, or their own money because they have a diagnosis, or because they are aging, or because someone in the family has decided it would be more convenient if they did. Competence is a legal standard, not a family vote. And if someone brings documents to a birthday dinner, call an attorney before you call them back. My mother is in the kitchen right now. I can hear her. She's making tea and she just turned on the radio and she's humming something I don't recognize, but that sounds like it might be Patsy Cline. This house is full of her. It always has been. She's not going anywhere.